P4. Nico Menzel is P5, still is P6. Tim Heinemann, the man that we were talking about just a few moments ago, going from P7 on the grid. P8, it's Ambarescu. P9, Bashoten, and Kaupi going from P10 on the grid. Going back to e-racing, Robert, and I've had the privilege of working with you for a couple of years on e-racing. I only do one event a year because no one ever asked me back for another one. Funny that, isn't it? Sim is a perfectly, that's a valid. I can use that, can I? Because I'm always very conscious that politically I want to say the right thing. Do you know what I mean? Because
no, I mean, sim racing is more like a general term, and e-racing especially refers to the Mercedes-AMG e-racing competition, which is run on Race Room, one of the well-known sims, sim titles for PC. And that's the competition that Tim Heinemann competed in for the last 3 years now.
Yes.
And he's won the competition twice. And as a prize of winning the competition, he got a test drive in the AMG sports car. He impressed very much. Next year, he got another prize. He actually tested the GT3. He set the same lap times as Bernd Schneider. And now Bernd Schneider has kind of taken him on board and is kind of pushing for him.
And he was actually at the competition yesterday, wasn't he, with him?
Yeah, and they're working very hard to get him onto a full season for the next year.
Right.
I know that it's not all secure yet. And they're looking at the GT4 championship, still looking, of course, to make it possible also from the financial side. But it's great to see that basically from video games you can now make your way onto the racetrack. Of course, you still need a bit of extra training to get used to the G-forces, to the danger as well. But Tim Heinemann in the second practice session yesterday set the fastest time out of all of the drivers. So it certainly shows already that it's not so far off anymore.
Absolutely right. Here is the starting grid in full then. Nicolas Scholl going from P1. Gilles Magnus then P2. Gabriella Piano, one to watch, from P3. Max Kobold, P4. Nico Menzel goes from P5 on the grid. Then it's Hendrik Still, P6. Tim Heinemann, P7. Then Ambarescu goes from P8. Schouten, as I suggested, going from P9. And Kaupi then from P10 on the grid. It's a long race, isn't it? It's although it is deemed to be a sprint race because, of course, ordinarily the GT4 that I know well, of course, you have two drivers per car. You have a mid-race pit stop, and it's a longer duration race generally, isn't it? So this very much is a sprint race as far as they're concerned.
Yes, of course, they're racing as the support program of the DTM, this time here in Hockenheim.
Yes.
And it's a different format. It's an interesting format. We will see how the tires will play out over the race distance as well. I spoke to Tim Heinemann before the race, and he said that there's a very short peak time for the tires.
Really?
So it could be interesting. No pit stops are planned, at least. And we can see the cars already on the formation lap, getting ready. They're getting into grid position.
Side by side. Love it. So GT4 Sprint Cup Europe Race 1 then is about to be unleashed here at the 4.574 kilometre circuit here in Hockenheim. Scholl and Magnus then P1 and P2. And you can see the cars all nip and tuck together then as they head towards the start of the race. The pace car and the safety car will peel off into the pit lane, of course, and then we have 40 minutes of racing to come from the GT4 Sprint Cup Europe race number 1 about to get underway here at Hockenheim. So the tension begins to build and the cars rev up, the excitement, the anticipation, and the engine note will roar now as the cars head down towards the timing line to officially start this 40-minute race. As the lights go out, let's go racing then. And the GT4 Sprint Cup Europe race is underway already. And look at that, Mercedes-Benz getting absolutely mugged at the start, down to P5 potentially now, right at the start of the race. But our Polstead are doing a brilliant job there.
Yeah, great start from Max Kobold on the outside in the white BMW. He might have the chance even to go into second place, but no, it should be actually the car of Piana who's in second place, very tight here in the second corner as they accelerate out of it. And a big lead already for Nicolas Scholl.
Yeah, Scholl is doing everything right because whilst everything else is playing out behind, Scholl is just able to get up the road and stretch his legs. Gabriella Piana needs to keep with him, doesn't he? So Gabriella Piana now, as the cars come around the Parabolica for the first time of asking, heading up towards the hairpin, and Piana is under a bit of pressure here for that P2 place potentially. It's always a pinch point, this hairpin. Oh, I just knew that there was going to be some contact come, and there was some contact. Perhaps, Robert, it was a bit lighter than I expected.
Yeah, Nico Menzel got a little tap there, lost a few positions, and Tim Heinemann up into 4th position, just drove around the outside of everyone.
Whilst everyone else was losing their head, Tim Heinemann was keeping cool,
Menzel
wasn't
is
he?
going back. Oh, contact. Oh, and Heinemann just about kept it on the road, and I think that's a puncture at the front there, at the front right for Menzel.
It's more than a puncture. It's more than a puncture. I think he's lost a track controller arm as well because the car was not steering.
And I think Heinemann is missing as well. We don't see him anymore. There he is, creeping out of the corner. So race already over for him and not his own fault.
So, Scholl.
Oh, another contact. That's the Ginetta of Kauppi. He was around. 40 minutes to go, and on the first lap, we're already 3 cars down. Kauppi stuck in the gravel trap on the entry of the Motordrome.
What is it? The race is not won or lost in the first lap. We've got 40 minutes of racing action. Safety car has been called for because that number 7 car of Kauppi is beached, isn't it? That Ginetta is not going anywhere. That's going to have to be recovered. There we could see, I think it was the Tim Heinemann car, wasn't it, with damage, but with the safety car out.
And he got a tap by Menzel there. He was earlier on the brakes than Menzel anticipated, and he just hit him in the rear. And it kind of looked like suspension damage on the car of Heinemann as well.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Big hit, actually.
That was quite an impact.
Yeah.
And there you can see, it's not only a puncture, but you can see the wheel wobbling there, the track control arm
and
is broken.
I feel Heinemann has the same, because it looked like his car was going not really straight anymore. Let's see if they can get it fixed. And Kauppi there loses it all on his own on the inside.
Yes, I don't think there was any contact on the back of that Ginetta, was there?
Such a shame, because this is a car we don't see too often in Germany. It's very common in the UK, of course.
Of course it is.
But here in Germany, it's we more have the German manufacturers. As you see now on the grid, only German cars left.
Yes, and we're already 3 cars down, having lost Menzel, Heinemann and Kauppi as well. So it's a 7-strong race now for 37.5 minutes. Robert, boy, I'm glad you're here. Can you make some sandwiches?
Oh, and look at Heinemann's car there.
That is just, well, it's just crabbing, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's not coming back out into this race. There's damage to the rear of the car as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
But to be fair, and you picked up quite well, Robert, that, you know, and there is, to the very left of the picture in the white shirt, I think that's Bernd Schneider, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it could be. Kind of looks like him.
Yeah, I think that is Bernd Schneider. I mean, there is no way that car is... Look at it. I mean, it's like a drift car coming down the pit lane.
He's full lock going through the pit lane there.
Just trying to control the back end of the car, which is so damaged. That car will not be returning, I regret to say. So, and there you can see, it's like rear wheel steering, isn't it?
Yeah.
That car is damaged beyond repair for this race, I'm sorry to say. So, Tim Heinemann then from hero to zero, I'm afraid. Now, this was the Ginetta incident. I want to pick up and see whether there was contact here. No, the back end just stepped out. He carried too much speed, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he braked really hard because he wanted to avoid the BMW ahead of him. He didn't want to hit the BMW. He braked very hard, couldn't quite see, maybe a little touch on the front, but his car doesn't seem to have any scratches on it, so probably just lost it on his own. And
well, I think that just the sheer force of the braking just made the rear end really loose, because the front end of the car compresses, doesn't it? Yeah. And unfortunately, of course, what that means is that Kauppi is going to be out of the race as well. So as I said, we're down to just 7 cars running.
I mean, no points to play for a championship. So,
but there we can see to the left of the picture Bernd Schneider being interviewed. So it was. I picked up absolutely correctly, Robert Weisenmuller. It was Bernd Schneider down there, who, as you said, is very much connected with Tim Heinemann and has taken him very much on a charge.
Yeah, Menzel also found his way back to the pits, but
hoping Menzel can.
Really,
no, I'm not convinced.
Didn't really look like he could continue.
Now, ironically, the Kauppi car could run again, couldn't it? But I don't think that under the rules and regulations they're allowed to allow that car back into the race. I don't think so. I don't have the rule book in front of me, but I'm pretty sure now the tractor really rather inelegantly takes the Ginetta, as you say, not such a common car here in Germany, but very common in the UK racing. So this is a replay of the start, and
you can see Cobalt on the outside has a fantastic start, but the outside is just not a great place to be in the first corner. And Piana, I think, in the black, red and white BMW, didn't have the best start actually. Cobalt had a better one, but he can just brake a bit later and use all of the track there.
So the car's through then, this replay of the start of the race, and there you can see
Tim Heinemann.
And Nico Menzel there as well. They're having a bit of a hug, aren't they, and saying, hey, racing incident, hands are shaken. Good camaraderie in the paddock, that's nice to see.
I still feel really sad for Tim, of course, because this was a huge opportunity to show himself in front of the DTM crowd. And
he's got another race tomorrow, hasn't he?
He has, and I hope they can get the car fixed. Same, of course, for Menzel. He's on pole for the next race. So.
There is Nico Menzel. I had great fun with Nico. Interviewed him at Brands Hatch when the DTM were at Brands Hatch, of course, being a BMW junior driver. He gets the opportunity on occasions to drive the BMW race taxis. And despite huge hints that I made to him, he didn't let me have a go. He wasn't.
Oh, I think that's Kaupi.
Yeah, I think Kaupi is coming back. Well, that's great news, because if he gets going now, he can catch up the crocodile, can't he? All right, he's going to be plumb last, but that doesn't matter. Under investigation, the incident between car number 48 and car number 110. We always expected that. That, of course, the Nico Menzel car and the car of Tim Heinemann. But we saw the drivers shaking hands in the paddock. They were both very bold and ambitious in the early stages of the race, and that was what really did for them. Now, the one I feel a bit sorry for here is the Allied Racing driver, Nicholas Scholl, because Nicholas Scholl, he'd done everything just right, Robert. And, of course, now, all of a sudden, he becomes vulnerable to Gabriele Piana, doesn't he? Because, you know, all the cars will bunch up. And
he already built up a nice grid, and a nice gap, I should say.
Kaupi into the pit lane.
I'm not sure if he really can continue after this. Maybe they have to get the gravel out of the car, so it doesn't overheat. But
someone's standing by with Henry Hoover to get all the gravel out of the car. I don't think so. I wonder whether the safety car surely will come in at the end of this lap, because the car of Kaupi has been recovered now, hasn't it? Ooh,
once again, the replay there, Heinemann and Menzel.
Yeah, that was really unfortunate. Really unfortunate. Through the gravel, but no steering control whatsoever. And there you can see the front wheel just absolutely wobbling about on the Nico Menzel car. And there is Nico Menzel. Can I just say, I've got one of the best audio engineers in this commentary studio, Ralph, who brings me a cup of tea, look, when I'm on the air. Bless his heart. See, do you get that treatment, Robert, in when it comes to e-racing?
No, I have to get the...
Oh, well, there's all the gravel coming off. There's all the gravel coming off the car.
I don't think they need to hoover anymore. Maybe they need it on the track.
Yeah, well, quite, because what that does, of course, all that gravel ends up laying on the track.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's enough problem when you've got rubber marbles which come off after tyre degradation. But when it actually comes to real stones, I mean, that is like a shower of them, isn't it?
Yes, and we can't really afford to lose another car in this race.
No kidding. Well, there you can see, I do regret that Kaupi will not be continuing in the race. And there's still plenty of gravel that has come off the car once it's been brought to a stop there. So, you know, he had almost a JCB full of gravel, didn't he, following that off. But there we are. Kaupi, sadly, out of the race. So that means we've lost 3 drivers. And what's that other car in there?
I think that's Menzel's car.
That is Menzel's car. Sorry, yes, I was distracted and I wasn't looking quite correctly. So, as I say, the big beneficiary here, in my opinion, as the safety car is coming in at the end of this lap, Robert, big beneficiary here could be Gabriele Piana, who is going to have to try and anticipate when the number 41 car of Nicholas Scholl is going to accelerate. Now, the rule is, once you accelerate, you have to stay accelerated. You can't accelerate, slow down, accelerate, slow down.
And we will see he's waiting quite a bit, and I think now...
I'll tell you what, Piana anticipated that quite well. He's kept with him, hasn't he?
Yeah, it almost looked like he didn't go on the throttle because Piana was so close. That was perfect restart from Piana and also from Cobalt. And a small gap to Magnus. Yes, lost out at the first start as they're racing again.
Top 3 places really have opened up a bit of a gap of 5 or 6 car lengths, haven't they? So, Nicholas Scholl then in the number 41 car puts himself some 4/10 ahead as they cross the timing line, and Gabriele Piana is P2, then his Cobalt is P3, and then, as you say, it's at car number 31 that Salazar Racing Team Gilles Magnus Mercedes-AMG GT4, which is running in P4. P5 is the number 42 car, and that another one of the Allied Racing cars, run by Hendrik Steele as one of the cars.
Yeah, I think it was him.
It was. Just got out onto the grass, didn't he? Kicked up all that dust. We saw earlier on in the DTM race, which preceded this GT4 race, Marco Wittmann, off the back of Paul di Resta, was on the grass, and it filled the cockpit with dust, and he couldn't see a thing. Right, I think Piana is under pressure here.
He's definitely under pressure right now, and we see the Ginetta there, struggling a little bit, but still racing, and Piana under a huge amount of pressure now by Cobalt, now coming up to the Mercedes Tribune. This was the corner where Heinemann and Menzel made contact.
Here we go.
Oh, and what's that? He's slowing down there at the front. The leader's slowing down.
Joel has got... Now, he really, really slowed, didn't he? So that was... I would have suggested there was a technical problem there. It's not... He hasn't made a mistake, has he? The car is faulted. The car has faltered, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So
down
all
to
of a sudden,
6, and he's pulling off here, pulling off the circuit.
Last car running will be the winner. Right. Gabriele Piana is leading this race now. However, he has got the hard-charging number 8 car of Max Cobalt, right behind. Max Cobalt, I mean, he's being gifted this opportunity, isn't he?
And especially Magnus as well in third position.
Yes.
He had a terrible start, and it looked like he would have to do a recovery drive throughout the whole race, and now he's already back in third with his eyes set on the leaders.
So they put another lap in the book then, Piana leading merely 2/10 ahead of Cobalt, then it's Magnus still. Umbrarescu is P5 and Schoten is P6 at the moment. I'll tell you what though, we've lost 4 of the cars, unfortunately, including at one point the race leader, of course, Nicholas Scholl, who is out of the race. So now what's playing into the hands, Robert, if I can say so, of Gabriella Piana is the fact that Cobalt now is having to defend so hard from the hard-charging number 31 car of Gilles Magnus.
Yeah, he really has to defend and attack at the same time.
You can't do it, can you?
Yeah, but he has to. And there you can see, actually, got a very nice slipstream, and now on the outside, tries it into the hairpin. We've seen this move work in the DTM race, but it also opens the door for Magnus.
Oh, the back end of the Magnus car, that looked great, didn't it, as he drifted that through the hairpin. But it's not the quickest way through there. So still under pressure is Gabriella Piana. He's soaking up the pressure pretty well at the moment, though, from Cobalt, who, wherever he puts the car, Gabriella Piana is wise to it and defends very hard. He carries perhaps a little bit too much speed into that turn. And Max Cobalt has to brake to avoid. And then, of course, that plays into the hands of the number 31 car of Gilles Magnus as well. So the top 3 have all been joined now by the 4th place driver, which is Hendrik Still, who is joining into this battle.
Coming up to the Sachskurve now, and you can see the lights flashing on the car of Magnus. He really wants the 2nd position.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So this a 4-way fight at the moment, and out of the fact that we've only got 6 cars running, that's good to see. All the cars close together, with the exception of P5 and P6, who have been left in the wake a little bit here. Still got 26.5 minutes of this race to come. And Gabriella Piana then, it remains the same at just 2/10 between Piana and Cobalt. Cobalt needs to get the hurry up here. I think Cobalt has got the quicker car, but it's all very well having a quicker car. You've got to try and find a way past, and Cobalt now just shows his face to the inside. It's not the quickest way through that turn, but what he's trying to do, of course, is unsettle Gabriella Piana ahead of him as well. As they make their way onto the parabolic, I have a little bet with you here, Robert Weissmuller, that Cobalt is going to have a go going into the hairpin. But Gabriella Piana actually stretching his legs a little bit now and building up a bit of a gap. So perhaps I might be wrong.
Let's see when they arrive at the end of the straight here, when they come up to the hairpin. Oh, you can see he has to defend. Piana has to defend, and there's the switchback move from Cobalt. This should be the position, but he locks up the brakes.
And now Piana will try and get underneath Cobalt's car. Oh, is there a little contact between the two of them? I don't think there was. Tell you what, if Cobalt actually manages to hold on to this, that will be a very good move, because I thought he was going to lose it on the exit of the turn.
Yeah, great move there. A little bit aggressive under braking, but he just got it stopped in time and just managed to block the apex as well, so that Piana does not have the chance to drive an undercut in the corner. And now Piana has to look in his rearview mirror because Magnus is coming up.
Yeah, absolutely right. That's one to keep an eye on. So Gabriella Piana then has gone from P1 to P2, and as you say, he needs to try and protect that P2 position now from the hard-charging P3 driver of Magnus then, as you can see. And
a little bit wild by Piana there.
I've seen some brilliant driving from Gabriella Piana, and I've seen some odd driving from Gabriella Piana in his racing career as well, to be fair. He's one of those drivers who's great entertainment for us to watch, and not always the quickest way around the track, but you can see that number 31 Mercedes-Benz is really loose at the back end. He's really having to use the opposite lock to control that car.
Yes, and of course behind him there's the Porsche Cayman from Hendrik Still. Teammate to Schell, who's already out of the race there with I assume, a technical issue.
It looked like it, didn't it?
Yeah. And then Umbrarescu in, here we can see the replay though. Nice move. Nice
it was
respect.
a nice move, and in fairness to Gabriella Piana, he gave him racing room as well, didn't he? He had to, otherwise they'd have both ended up out, and we'd been down to the final 5 cars racing. But
there you can see it. It's hard to tell from here what it could be, but it's not the driver's error.
It's not a driver error, is it? You know, he didn't lock up, he didn't make a mistake, he didn't. You know, he's just retiring that car, isn't he?
And such a shame, because he's a young guy.
Yeah.
He's one of the guys who's probably got a promising career in motorsport ahead, and to lose a race like this in the lead, he's actually won 4 races in the European series in his category, in the with the longer races, the endurance series. certainly in a great shape, but this race, no chance for him to win anymore.
Right. Gabriele Piana is under pressure like never before now, because on the inside is Magnus now, and that's a really pretty fair overtake, which, to be fair, he set that up 2 turns before then. And Gabriele Piana did his level best to try and defend against it, but in the end it was absolutely hopeless. But, may I say, Robert, now that Cobalt has been released from Gabriele Piana, who of course he was battling with, he is up the road like a stabbed thing, isn't he?
Yes, he's already gapped Magnus, and Magnus was faster than him in the qualifying session, but not by much. And now it's quite a gap. You can see it here on your screen visibly. It's certainly over a second already.
Yeah.
And let's see if he can close the gap for Piana. It looks like this race is going a little bit backwards. Oh, once again, very loose in the final corner.
Yes. I refer the caller to what I said just a few moments ago. Huge crowd enjoying this GT4 Sprint Cup Europe Race 1. Now, into the hairpin, you see. And then trying to get underneath once again, get that undercut, get that switchback if at all possible. And that's where Gabriele Piana, you know, to be fair, made that work, but then he was still on the defence, wasn't he? And here was just exactly wrong for that turn.
Yes, and there's also another interesting story on this grid.
Oh,
Gabriele
wait.
Piana, he usually shares his car with Umbrarescu, who's in the 111 in the BMW, who's a little bit further back right now. And the way the race progresses, Umbrarescu is coming closer and closer and closer to Piana. You can see him here now on the straight.
So that's going to be a real battle between teammates, but not teammates in this race.
Yeah, I mean, when you share a car with someone, you can say, oh no, it's not my fault that we didn't perform this race, it's the other guy's fault.
Yeah, quite.
And here they can really battle it out.
Well, to be fair...
And look at Kauppi, by the way. He's still 3 laps down, but he's still going.
Yes, and good. Jolly pleased about that. So there's Cobalt then. 1.3 seconds to the good over Magnus then, who is in P2. What have we got? 22 minutes just under of the race remaining. Then in this GT4 Sprint Cup Europe race 1 of 2 across this weekend on the support package for the huge DTM weekend. There's still a huge crowd here at Hockenheim to enjoy this. And Cobalt then using all the track plus Astro curbs, almost gravel as well, as of course these fantastic GT4 series cars then make their way around this 4.574 kilometer Hockenheim circuit.
And we can see a nice variety of cars here still in the race, but I think when we talk about the future, when we talk about next year, when there will be a German series, when we talk about the international series, there's still a lot more potential of different cars that you don't see so often, because still I think a lot of the GT sport is focused on GT3, but here you've got some very nice different cars as well, like the Ginetta. We probably see a KTM at some point as well.
And that's one of the appeals of GT4, isn't it? I mean, it has to be said that one of the big attractions of GT4 is supposedly the cost, isn't it?
Yeah.
And of course, you can share a car, as you say, in the endurance racing, share a car between 2 drivers. So it has a lot of appeal. And as you say, from an audience perspective as well, to see different cars that are ordinarily that we don't see in GT3 racing is fantastic. Yes,
and from the costs, of course, it's a lot cheaper than a GT3 car. It's a lot easier to maintain, and you don't quite need such a big team to run the car. For me, coming from sim racing, of course, coming from racing where a car costs maybe €3, it's still kind of expensive when I hear the sums that you need just to go racing for one event. And that's unfortunately part of the reason why we don't see such a big grid here. But I think on the long term, this is something that will develop into a really big championship, because it's a very cost-effective way of running GT races.
So then we have 20 minutes of the race remaining. So we're at about half distance, and the race is being led by
Piana off the track. Off the track there.
Yeah, that has cost him some valuable tenths and 100ths potentially, and will have allowed the number 42 car of Hendrik Still to get a bit closer still. There you can see that that's the number 30 car, the Celeslar Racing Team Baz Schouten car. Number 8 car leading the race, though, the MDM Motorsport Max Cobalt car, the Netherlands-based driver, that BMW M4 GT4 car.
And Max Cobalt, he's also experienced in GT4 racing, of course. He drove this car for a whole season, and for him it's, of course, a bit easier to... Of course, it's still a new track, but it's a bit easier when you have the car already dialed out, compared to someone who's a complete newcomer, like we had Heinemann earlier in the race.
So regrettably, we've lost Heinemann, and we've lost the BMW junior driver, Nico Menzel, another driver who's got a heady career ahead of him. I feel sure of that. So 1.2 seconds then between P1 and P2, and that's remained fairly stagnant, Robert, hasn't it? And that's, when it comes to mid-distance in the race, that's when it becomes very, very difficult, because what you're trying to do is use everything you can to try and decrease that gap between P1 and P2. But at the same time, of course, you've got the fuel load is lightening, so the car becomes different in the way it behaves. You've got some tyre degradation as well. So all of a sudden, the drivers have to adapt their driving style somehow to what the car is doing towards the later stages, the mid to final stages of the race.
Yes, and I think this is something where the experience of Cobalt might come into play. Jill Magnus, he's a guy who's mostly famous for driving in junior Formula Series. Yes. He's been driving in the Formula Renault with a lot of success before. And Cobalt, of course, has got the car. He knows it really well. And on the other hand, there are, of course, two different cars. We've got the BMW in the front, BMW M4 GT4, and then behind him, the Mercedes-AMG GT4. So, of course, there could be differences between the cars itself.
Oh, absolutely. But you just...
Oh, Heinemann is going again. How quickly did they get this car fixed?
Wow, that's extraordinary, isn't it? So Heinemann is being sent out once again. All it becomes the remainder of this race. I mean, he's going to finish, even if he finishes plumb last, which he probably will, he's still going to get P9, isn't he?
He's still going to get the mileage, especially for tomorrow.
It's the data, isn't it?
Yeah.
That will give him the crucial, perhaps, advantage for tomorrow. So really good work then by the HTP Motorsport team to get that car back out on track once again. Urged on with the 19mm spanner by Mr. DTM that was down there as well, Bernd Schneider, who was hurrying them on as well. So Tim Heinemann, goes out once again. I didn't expect to see that, Robert.
Yeah, now we can see maybe at the lap times as the race progresses, if this car is really already on the same level as the other cars, if he can compete at least maybe for the fastest lap.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. It could be the fastest car out there. He's never going to win the race because he's goodness knows how many laps behind. However, it's good to see him back out there again. And as you quite rightly pointed out, what it does, it becomes a test session almost for the race tomorrow. So, 1.2 seconds, the gap between P1 and P2, which has stayed the same. Now, a number of cars are now being warned with regards to track limits. Now, track limits have always been an issue here at Hockenheim, and it depends actually on how they steward it. But at the moment, cars are being shown black and white flags, and those include the Baz Schouten car, also the 111 car of Umberescu, and another one is the number 7 car, the Nova Race car of Kaupi, who we're pleased to see Kaupi back out on track once again, and also getting a black and white flag is the number 42 car of Hendrik Still. Now, black and white flag is a warning flag, but basically, if you don't act on that warning and you continue to exceed the track limits, then you might get a penalty. Now, of course, the track limits, you may say, well, why are the black and white flags only being shown now? Well, I think that the track limits are only being exposed now because, again, because of tyre degradation, we're over halfway through the race, the car behaves differently and it hasn't got the grip that it once had.
Yeah. That's true, and especially this first corner, it's well known for having some issues with the track limits. They tried various layouts of curbs and colored areas there over the years.
Made no difference, does it?
Yeah, at the end, every driver wants to find the fastest way, and the fastest way is not always between the two white lines.
Funny that.
We can have a little battle, actually.
Do you police that in the
race.
same way in e-racing?
Well, in the e-racing competition, we do it in the way that the drivers get a slowdown penalty automatically handed to them by the game if they cut the track.
Oh, right. So it's automatic done.
We don't really need a steward who's pushing the button or so, and then someone holds the sign at the pit wall. It's all automatically, and then the driver has to slow down. He doesn't have a choice, really.
No. Umberescu under a bit of pressure now from the number 30 car of Baz Schouten, I believe. Race, it's been remarkable for lap after lap after lap. The margin between P1 and P2 has remained at 1.2 seconds. There's nothing between the two of them, and you rather get the impression, don't you, that the number 8 car of Max Cobalt, he's just managing it absolutely perfectly. Between P5 and P6, there you can see, as I said, there is a battle going on there, and the gap has really come down noticeably over the last 3 laps.
Yeah, it has indeed. And looks like Umbrarescu, he's going to lose the battle against his teammate here in the race, and he might also finish in last, at least of this group here, if he isn't careful, because Schouten is all over him. And like the other Mercedes, like Jill Magnus, he's also making excessive use of his headlight switch.
Yes, by using the headlight switch, all you're trying to do is unsettle the driver ahead of you, just to get that driver to make the tiniest of error. That's all you need. And here you can see is that both the cars run all four wheels off the track there. There you can see those headlights being used, as Robert has indicated they were, and they continue to be used. And as I say, it's just to unsettle the driver ahead and try and force a small error and a mistake. And these two, as they're battling, is allowing the cars ahead of them from P1 to P4 to really get up the road. P5 and P6 now dropping further back down from that pack of cars, aren't they?
Yeah, they are indeed. And I think by now, Schouten should be close enough to maybe launch an attack into the hairpin. We'll have to see it. Magnus actually a bit further back, but still using his headlight switch. You can see them in the back of the shot, coming closer, but it seems on the straight there's a little bit of an advantage. Oh, late on the brakes, bit of a lock-up there.
Ooh.
That's also still way off the circuit there. He's been warned already.
Yes. Well, at the moment there's no further indications of any penalties that might be applied with regards to track limits. Just the black and white warning flags that have been shown to the drivers that, well, to be fair, 2/3 of the drivers have had black and white flags, haven't they?
Yeah, quite a few drivers being already warned in this race. Kaupi as well, you could just see him there in the back of the shot, and completely different part of the circuit, but at least he's still going. Also great for the crowd to see the Ginetta, which is really a car that you basically never see in his own racing scene.
And as you say, going forward, that may well change, mightn't it? As more and more of those cars are adopted into the growing GT4 program, and particularly with the German GT4 series next season.
Exactly, and also for the drivers as well, this is also trying to evaluate their programs for next year. Where are they going to race? And like we said before, because of the relatively low cost, GT4 might become a very attractive opportunity. And now the battle is on for P5.
Absolutely, it is. The continuing of the lights flashing is beginning to have an effect here. Umbrarescu,
a bit sideways there. Almost lost the rear of the car.
Good control, actually. Good save, I would have said. So, oh, look at that. The back end of that Mercedes-Benz does look loose, to be truthful. And doing a very, very good job in controlling it, that's for sure. And trying to get now, surely this time, Robert, into the hairpin. There has got to be a go, hasn't there? But I tell you what, when the BMW stretches its legs on the on this parabolica, it just seems to break away from the Mercedes-Benz, doesn't it? It seems to have the pace on the straight. Perhaps not quite so good, or perhaps it's down to driver ability through the turns.
Well, I think it's also on the brakes where you can see that the Mercedes has always gained a little bit of time. So over a lap, they're very similar from the pace, but in a battle, it's a small advantage for the BMW just because it has a straight line advantage.
Yes.
And at the front of the field, Magnus has gotten pretty close now to Cobalt.
He's got closer, hasn't he? He's taken 3/10 out of him.
But he will have the same problem because it's the same car constellation. So he really has to think about making a move in one of the more dangerous areas of the track.
Yes, and that might be a sacrifice too far. Who knows?
Especially with the race tomorrow, where they still need their cars.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. So we will see how this will play out for the remaining 10.5 minutes of this GT4 Sprint Cup Europe race. Race 1 of 2.
Just to point out, fastest lap time so far of the race, it has been set by Cobalt with the 49.8. But Heinemann on the 50.5, he's currently the second fastest car on the track. Actually, now that the new times come in, he's actually the fastest car on the track. So doesn't seem to be so much of damage on his car, and certainly a strong contender for the next race.
No, absolutely. And the team did a very, very good job in getting that car back out again. So whatever damage there was, and still, look, he's not been able to find a way past. I have to say, I'm really, really impressed with the defensive driving that's going on here, because Umbrarescu, he's not bowing to the pressure, is he?
Yeah.
He's not making mistakes, and that is becoming ever more frustrating for Schouten, isn't it? Because he's getting frustrated now.
Yeah.
He's going to get raggy. He's potentially going to make an error in trying to get past. Whereas Umbrarescu is just saying, well, come on, if you think you're hard enough, you can be as quick, but you've got to get past me as well.
Yeah, and Schouten, he's just losing so much time coming out of the, at the sector line of the first sector there. And it's just looking unlikely that he can find the momentum to go alongside him into the hairpin. So I really think his best opportunity is in the first sector, because he's very, very close there.
Yes, you're absolutely right. So, here we can see our battles that are continuing. So, under 9 minutes remaining in this first GT4 Sprint Cup Europe race. So, the number 30 car then, Verschouten then, has tried so very hard to get past Umberescu, but has been denied. And I have to say, if I'm honest with you, Robert, I've been really impressed with Umberescu. The way he's just been able to soak up the pressure and has not made a mistake, has not faltered, has not put one wheel wrong, to be honest. And as I say, that I think is probably ever more frustrating for Verschouten, who of course has done everything he possibly can and has almost driven the tyres off that thing in his quest to get past him. Yeah. We're talking about an argument here over P5, aren't we?
Yeah, for me, in the battle, there are always two stages for me. There's the stage where you don't risk it quite, and there's the stage where you go all in. And from the tricks you can do when you don't risk it, I think Schouten is doing all of them. You know, he's pulling out a little bit, showing in the side mirrors, he's using his lights, he's putting him under pressure, but he hasn't really made the risky attempt yet. But I think it will come in the race, because you can see, you know, these first stage type moves when he's going to the sides, when he's flashing his lights, it's just getting more and more and more. So he's definitely getting impatient. Umberescu, he's done everything right so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Whilst all that's been going on, the gap between Cobalt, who's leading the race, and the P2 driver, Gilles Magnus, it's down to 9/10. They're under a second between P1 and P2. But to be fair, that's where it is currently. You can see them. We've got almost three battles going on, haven't we? The battle for P1, the battle for P3, and of course the battle for P5.
Yes, at the front of the field so far, it's the same story more or less. He's been flashing his lights, Gilles Magnus, but he also hasn't quite tried it. And you really have to think about it. This is the first race of the GT4 Sprint Cup Europe. It would be nice to win it, right?
Of course, absolutely. You'd go down in the record books, wouldn't you? And yes, that is it is very much a incentive, if you like. So the leading cars then making their way through turn number 13 and 14, and there you can see the tyres on the Verschouten car. They're actually squealing and screaming in protest as he continues to flash his lights at Umberescu ahead of him, and Umberescu is saying, yeah, come on, it's no problem for me. And in fairness, I think the margin between Umberescu and Verschouten appears to have increased just a little bit. It'll be interesting to see when we get the cars across the sector timeline. We can see exactly what the margin is. But now, up front, look, Magnus has got the gap down to just 4/10 between himself and Cobalt. So I think the fight might be on for the lead of the race in this lap, or maybe the lap after.
Yeah, he found half a second on one lap. So now certainly he's in the faster car for the remainder of the race, but he doesn't have a lot of time. Let's see if he can actually make a risky move and make it stick.
Well, he's going to have to throw it. He's going to have to try, isn't he?
And he has to try it at one of the slower parts of the circuit, because
that's where it's going to work, isn't it? Yes.
We've seen how fast the car from Cobalt is on the straight. He was even faster than the other BMWs.
Yes.
Meanwhile, race direction, car number 112, Gabriele Piana, that is. He was in an inaccurate grid position, or at least they think so. They will investigate it after the race, so maybe some trouble coming up for Piana, who's sitting on the podium right now.
He is at the moment. Now, by inaccurate grid position, that's not to suggest he was necessarily in the wrong place, but actually you have to be correctly positioned within your grid box, and if you're not, even if you're a centimetre out, you can be penalised for that. So that might be what the race stewards are going to investigate after the race.
Maybe also with the rolling start. We've seen that the BMW's got a great rolling start, and that Magnus got really mugged at the start, and Piana was the first car to pass Magnus.
That's a fair point.
Maybe that was before the line.
Yes, so once they left on their formation lap, so it wouldn't be that necessarily the inaccurate grid position, but more in terms of where he was when he passed the line on the rolling start. You're absolutely right, Robert. Well pointed out.
Let's see if we've got any moves now in the last 5 minutes of the race. Fastest car on track still Tim Heinemann, 50.3 on his last lap. So he's showing.
He's 5/10 quicker, isn't he, than the race leader?
Only Magnus can go at the same pace at the moment, and Magnus 0.3. That's close now, and you can see it now on your screen.
4.5 minutes of this race remaining. There is going to be a fight on for the lead, isn't there? Cobalt is really going to have to defend here from Magnus as they head into this turn. You can see how Cobalt is putting the car into the middle of the track. Please stay with it, and we didn't. So we don't know.
Oh, he got the switch back, but now the power of the BMW might keep the BMW ahead. Still, this is, from the first moment on, it's more risk than Magnus is showing here. That's promising for the remaining laps.
So Magnus then reeling in, or trying to reel in the a car ahead, going in towards the hairpin now. So Cobalt then, again, he's going to put the car right in the middle of the hairpin, which is exactly the place to put it, to deny Magnus the opportunity to come by. But he really is under pressure now. Magnus then with good momentum off the back of the hairpin, trying to really reel in the number 8 car. And as you can say, that BMW, the Cobalt BMW, and we've seen it with the other BMW as well, it's just on the exit of the turns. When you need that traction, the BMW is delivering, isn't it?
Yes. Cobalt driving in the MDM Motorsport prepared car, and it looks like they prepared it very well for this race. But Magnus, throughout the second half of the race, Magnus has really impressed me.
I think I would agree with you there. He's just slowly gone about it, hasn't he? And he's taken the time out, but we are running out of time. We've got 3 minutes remaining of this race, the GT4 Sprint Cup Europe Race 1. So this is the fight that's going on for the lead of the race, currently being led by Cobalt then in the number 8 car, number 31 Magnus then pursuing in P2. Both of these cars have been broken away from the Gabriella Piana car, which is running in P3. So 2 3/4 minutes left as they head across the timing line now. They're both looking a bit raggy. Tyre degradation has reached its maximum. And the cars, as they run in towards turn number 1. Cobalt with a slightly different line. Magnus is tighter through there. Cobalt defends. He makes the car as wide as possible, sticks his elbows out to try and deny Magnus. So Magnus then goes to the outside, all the way around the outside of this turn. If he can make this work, he'll have the inside for the Parabolica. But this is where the BMW scores, Robert, and we've said it so many times before. It's just on the exit of the turns. The car can just get the power down.
And Magnus, he really needs to go on the inside in this corner if he wants to have a chance to make the move stick. This was already a great opportunity for him. You can see the risk that he took in the first corner. His car was all the way sideways again, sliding over the rear. He also took the curb much harder than Cobalt did in front of him, and now he's all over the back of him. Now he's close.
Absolutely, but again, this is where that BMW of Cobalt really, really scores. It's just getting the momentum down off the back of those turns. We are into the final minute and 3/4. What there's going to be is the remainder of this lap plus one more lap, Robert, and then it's going to be all over. So it's now or never for Magnus. He's got to do it, hasn't he?
He has to, and he's driving a little bit more solid lines at the moment. You can see it here. Cobalt slightly missed the apex there. Oh, all the way over the blue area there, behind the curve once again for Magnus.
Yes, and you can understand why Magnus would look a bit raggy now, but what he can't afford to do is let Cobalt get too far up the road. Here we can see in replay. Now, I thought all the way around the outside here, I mean, that was really brave move, wasn't it? Because the grip is never going to be there around the outside, but he tried it. And what that did, I mean, and again, fair play to Cobalt, because he's not yielded to that pressure, has he?
No, he has not. He's done a great job there. He gave him enough room on the outside, didn't squeeze him or anything, but just kept on driving his race, and now he's got a decent gap. Now the gap is a little bit bigger when they come up to the first corner here.
So through turn 1 they go then, heading up towards turn number 2 now. So here the cars come then. And it was last time around then we saw that fantastic move from Magnus. It didn't pay off, to be fair. But now Magnus again, right on the back of Cobalt. But again, Cobalt
got a decent exit.
Yes, he did. We are on the final lap, as I predicted this would be. And the checkered flag awaits, but who is the checkered flag going to unfurl for? Is it going to be Magnus? Is it going to be Cobalt? At the moment, you would have to say that, in my opinion, Robert, barring a huge mistake from Cobalt, I think he should be able to hold on to this. Commentator's curse, of course. But Max Cobalt really, to be fair, I think does deserve to take the win because he has defended very, very hard, but fair. And there's been good racing respect between the two of them. And it's just a sequence of a few turns now before Max Cobalt then will put his name into the record books of winning the first of the GT4 Sprint Cup Europe races, if it stays this way. But Magnus, of course, will desperately want to still do something about that as they head down towards turn number 11, which is the Mobile 1 turn, and then into the very banked Sachs curve, where you can take a different line, and both lines can work through the Sachs curve. It's a banked turn, And in NASCAR terms, you can go low or you can go high. Well, there was no option for either, really, because there wasn't an overtake on there. So Max Cobalt is going to have done enough here, as he has one more turn to do now. And he will head for the checkered flag. Magnus has really tried to take it to him, but in the end just did not have the legs to be able to do so. Max Cobalt will take the win from Magnus, who will be P2. Then it should be Gabriella Piana then, who comes through turn number 16, the Sud Curve, to take P3. Ahead of Still, who will be P4. Then it should be Umberescu, or will it be?
Side by side.
There's a fight.
Oh, the power of the BMW. I think it's just about enough.
Oh, Umberescu just holds on to it. Wow. That was almost a photo finish, wasn't it? Fantastic, Robert.
Less than a tenth. And even though we only had 6 cars here racing for the positions, they still provided action up until the finish line. Kaupi and Heinemann should still be going there. But congratulations to this man here. Congratulations to Max Cobalt for winning the first race of the GT4 Sprint Cup Europe, the MDM Motorsport driver in the BMW M4 GT4.
Well done, you. Well done, Max Cobalt. And great job. And he soaked up that pressure. And really, really impressive. So the cars will make their way round to Parc Ferme, then the podium to come, of course. So Cobalt, Magnus, Piana are the drivers we're going to see up there on the podium. Do bear in mind that car number 112, which is the P3 driver of Gabriella Piana, is going to be investigated after the race, but I think it would be really unfair for him to pick up a penalty after the race. We will see. The race stewards will look at that. That's how close it was as they headed towards the checkered flag. And I have to say, I agree wholeheartedly with you, Robert, alongside me, that despite the fact that there were perhaps not the grid of cars that we would have liked to see, they did provide some great action for us.
Yeah, indeed. A couple of cars, of course, already out on the first lap. They provided a little bit more action than they could take, I guess, on the first lap.
Yes.
But it's great to see that in these races where it's really about showing yourself, that the drivers actually take the risk, that they go full attack mode early on.
Confirmation of the race result. Thank you, Robert. Max Cobalt taking the win from Gilles Magnus. Then it's Gabriella Piana, P3. Hendrik Still, P4. Razvan Umberescu, P5. Bad Schouten, P6. Henry Kaupu, P7. Tim Heinemann, who was some 9 laps down, but still finished. It was P8. Nicholas Scholl, and of course we lost Nico Menzel with significant damage to the car. We didn't see him complete the race. So here is our race leader once again, Max Cobalt.
And fastest lap actually for Tim Heinemann, fastest lap for the sim racer who made his way from race room, from the Mercedes-AMG Motorsport e-racing competition into real racing. First race here in the GT4s and already set the fastest lap. Absolutely. So let's see if he can show some fireworks tomorrow.
And in fairness, that's exactly what you said you thought might happen, that he would come out the only victory he could take out of the race by being so far back was of course going to be the fastest lap. So here the cars come into the Parc Ferme then, and then they will be up to the podium. Look at the celebrations down there.
Yeah, the MDM team celebrating.
It's a great looking livery on that car. Sorry to interrupt you, Robert, but I really like that.
Yeah, it has the classic touch of the old factory liveries in the 80s.
Indeed,
yeah.
but it has the classic touch, but it's been made contemporary, hasn't it?
Yeah. Then we have the Matrix car. That's Piana. Victory celebrations there in the Max Cobalt camp.
So GT4 Sprint Cup Europe then, race 2 here tomorrow, right at the end of the day tomorrow, which will be a terrific race to watch, given the actual race entertainment that they've provided with us today. Been very good. So well done, and bodes well for GT4 for next season. So the drivers will head up to the podium. Still more racing to come here at Hockenheim today, with the second of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship races to take to the track as well. So hot in the cars there, as you can see from the really outstanding hairstyle. Once the balaclava has been removed, that's not a problem you have with e-racing, is it?
Yeah, it doesn't get quite as hot there when when you drive here. It's a sprint car, but still 40 minutes in such a car. And not a lot of driving assists, of course, in these cars, basically none. So it's quite demanding.
Yeah, it's a physical, and that in a way that's what I find so appealing about it. You have to pedal the car, don't you? Do you know what I mean? There's no driver aids. You have to really. It's a real mechanical. It's you at one with the car, and you've got to deliver, and they have delivered as well.
Yes, they have. And I think it's a great concept for the future. Lots of different cars, different manufacturers involved already, and you can join in for a relatively low price.
Yes. Gabriella Piana there, you can see, discussing exactly how that race unfolded. And the drivers will be hustled off up to the podium now. I would urge you to do a search online, GT4 series, and check out the GT4 Sprint Cup Europe. And as I say, another race from the GT4 Sprint Cup Europe cars tomorrow here at Hockenheim. So it's quite a few steps up to the podium, has to be said, and it is a walk that I have made, regrettably, not because I've been on the top step of the podium, but because I've been there hosting the podium ceremonies on occasions. Robert, you looked at me as if you were surprised. You thought I had been a race winner here at Hockenheim once in my life.
I mean, who knows?
Yeah, no, I do. Not the case. Not the case. In fact, I'm slightly disappointed that...
they should make a race for the commentators, you know.
Do you think?
At the end of the season, when they don't need their cars anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, Mercedes, they should have some spare DTM cars.
Can I just say, Robert, that ain't happening. Me and you can hint all we want. That ain't going to happen, I don't think. So, standing by for the podium then. And looking forward to seeing those... cars up there. Resplendent in his sunglasses is Max Brahms, who is the organizer of GT4. And I rather suspect that he'll be making trophy presentations here at the podium at Hockenheim.
Gil Magnus already getting ready for receiving his trophy. That's the first driver, Gabriele Piana.
Takes
Congratulations.
P3. Yep. So P3 for Gabriella Piana. Magnus will take P2. Cool as a cucumber, has to be said.
You can see he's also one of the young guys here.
Yes.
The young guns.
Here comes Max Cobalt then to the top step of the podium. He's delighted with that win. And fair play to the top three drivers. Teams represented as well for the winning driver. And then it will be time for Robert and Dave to shut up and allow the national anthem to play out then for our top three. So the national anthem plays out then, and it's trophy presentation time for the top three then on the podium. And then you'll see a sprint, because we have to go from one commentary booth to another one. And good to see Mr. Herman Tomczyk here to make the trophy presentations then. Gabriella Piana receives his. Herman Tomczyk, of course, he is the ADAC Sport President. And making the trophy presentation now to Magnus for P2. And then, of course, the race-winning trophy. Max Cobalt then celebrates his race win and goes down in the record books as being the winner of the first GT4 Sprint Cup Europe race. Here, a team, of course, received their trophy as well. So the drivers will pose for their photographs, and then the champagne will erupt up there on the podium, I hope. And they will celebrate in true style. And of course, I remind you, another GT4 Sprint Cup Europe race to come tomorrow. Robert, may I say thanks very much for joining us on the air. Hope you enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed you being alongside.
It was a great opportunity to once in a live commentator race with real cars that that don't drive on the simulator on the computer.
Well,
it was a great experience.
Thanks very much. Nice to have you here alongside us. We're going to take a look at the highlights now, but please make sure that you join us for race number 2 tomorrow. Bye-bye for now.